Hey everybody, it's Tom Woods. I wanted to make a quick video on a subject that unfortunately has already left the news cycle, but I was too busy at the time. It's Senator Rand Paul's comments to the effect that the idea of a right to health care is akin to a kind of partial slavery. You can imagine what the thought controllers thought about that statement. How dare he say such a thing? It's wonderful to be coerced and expropriated. You were born to be ruled over by your overlords. Now, I'm not going to deal with the subject of, well, if we didn't use violent force against some people, then the poor would be living in terrible destitution. That's a subject for another video. For now, I just want to deal with the principle of the thing. And I want to make 2 points. The first is, if we're going to evaluate whether a particular right, an alleged right, is actually a natural right, a right that all of us as human beings enjoy simply by virtue of being human, it has to pass a critical test, which is, we all have to be able to enjoy that right at the same time and in the same way for it to be natural, obviously. It has to be something that its exercise does not lead to any logical contradiction or conflict. So, for example, suppose I'm on a desert island with somebody. There's no logical difficulty in supposing the two of us could enjoy our right to life side by side. There's no logical difficulty in imagining that we could enjoy the right to private property simultaneously. I could have my iPod, he could have a basket of apples, whatever. There's no logical difficulty in that. But suppose we posited a right to a Cadillac. How's that going to be enforced? How's a right to a Cadillac going to be enforced? How am I going to get my Cadillac? The only way I could get it is by demanding that the other guy manufacture one for me. And the only way he's going to get one is by demanding that I make one for him. So right away, we should be skeptical if this could possibly be a natural right. This would just consist of the two of us fruitlessly barking commands at each other. But beyond that, if we actually really did try to enforce this right, well, as you can see, this is not a right that we can both enjoy at the same time and in the same way, because to get my Cadillac, I have to force my fellow island dweller to engage in physical labor. And likewise, he has to force me to engage in physical labor to get what he wants. So this can't possibly be a natural right that inheres in all human beings. Now, when we talk about issues like this, it brings us to my second point, which is to think about what Robert Nozick, the great Harvard philosopher, said when he dealt with the subject of income taxation, which he believed was a form of forced labor. He said, if you tax away the fruits of 5 months of somebody's labor, how's that different from taking away 5 months from a person? That's forced labor. Forget about the government propaganda about how it's really a contribution you're making. Please, we're not 12 years old. Let's call it what it is. And to illustrate this more vividly, he developed something called what he called the tale of the slave. And I include this in my book, Rollback. I'm going to share it with you now. It's very brief, goes through 9 quick stages. Nozick invites you to imagine yourself as the slave in the story. And stage 1 is that you are indeed a slave subject to a brutal master who forces you to work for him and who beats you arbitrarily. In the second stage, the master lightens up a bit, and he beats you only for breaking the rules, and he even grants you some free time. In the third stage, we add the additional dimension that you are one of a group of slaves subject to this master. And this master, based on principles that are acceptable to all of you, decides how goods will be allocated among you. In the fourth stage, you even get some time off. You have to work for the master for only 3 days per week. The other 4 days are your own. In stage 5, you even get to work wherever you want, but you have to remit to the master 3/7 of your wages to correspond to the 3 days out of 7 that you once worked for him. He also retains the right to recall you into service in emergencies and to increase at any time the fraction of your wages to which he lays claim. Then, in stage 6, everyone, all let's say 10,000 slaves, except you, are granted the right to vote. So they get to decide what is allowed and what is not allowed. They get to decide what fraction of your wages will be taken away and what outlets the money will be spent on. In stage 7, you still don't have the right to vote, but you are allowed to try to persuade those who can vote to exercise their powers in a particular way. In stage 8, you are granted the right to vote, but only to break a tie. You write down your vote, and if a tie should occur, your vote is opened up and recorded. No tie has ever occurred. Finally, in stage 9, you are fully granted the right to vote. But this simply means, functionally, that, as in stage 8, in case of a tie, your vote carries the issue. But there has never been a tie. Nozick's question is this: at what stage between 1 and 9 did this become something other than the tale of a slave? That's the kind of mind-blowing question that makes you rethink everything you've been taught about taxation and society, government. It's the kind of thing that makes you skeptical of government propaganda from that moment on. And that's precisely why Nozick's question is never asked.